Cardiff, Paul Scoble. How you going? Hey. Hi, I'm Paul. I've always been interested in the big, important questions in life. Questions like, what is the tooth fairy actually doing with all those teeth? And if a man with multiple personality disorder decides he wants to commit suicide, does that count as a hostage crisis? And is a metrosexual a man who gets a hard-on if you give him a free paper? I think my interest in big, important questions comes from the fact that I come from a very, very religious family. My parents made sure I had a very strict Christian upbringing, which, as you can probably tell, definitely had an effect. I tried to believe, but belief is one of those things you can't really force. So I'm sorry, Mum and Dad, but I don't believe Jesus walked on water. I am willing to concede, however, that due to its nature as a non-Newtonian fluid, Jesus could have walked on custard. I think I'd have been more likely to believe in God if one of Jesus' miracles had been to turn the entire Lake of Galilee into custard. I think the world would be much happier and more peaceful if Jesus had created hundreds of thousands of tons of pudding. And for his next miracle, Jesus did turn Mount Sinai into apple crumble. And the people did feast on apple crumble, crying, nom nom nom, oh Lord. Now that's a God I could believe in, a warm, surreal, funny God. And that's one of my real problems with the Bible. There are no jokes, not even a one-liner or a limerick. There's nowhere in the Bible where it says, and Jesus did say to his disciples, verily, my brothers, a Samaritan, an Israelite, and a Canaanite walk into a bar. And if you look at the Old Testament, you'll also notice that in the part where God speaks to Moses from the burning bush, he did not open with the words, knock, knock. So I ended up as an atheist who knows the Bible inside out. So I started wondering about all those crazy, wacky stories, and I've come up with a couple of theories about the origins of these myths. For the first theory, I'll use Jerusalem as an example. Jerusalem is a very popular place for the three Abrahamic religions. Jerusalem's popularity as a site of religious experience may have caused some problems over the years. Don't quote me on this, but I think it might be responsible for a certain amount of tension. Now, a lot of religious people have used this popularity as a reason to try and prove that God exists. They think he particularly likes that specific geographical area, just that one little bit. I kind of see it the other way around. I reckon there's only one spring in Jerusalem where most people get their water. And in and around that spring are growing, I don't know, mushrooms, maybe truffles. So I think a lot of those crazy miracles could have happened something like this. Oh my God, look at that! Look at what? That, there. What? Where? What do you mean where? There! It's Jesus ascending to heaven. Look, you can see the choirs of angels adoring him. I can't see anything. There! That's a seagull. Are you thirsty? You know, now you come to mention it, I am quite parched. Yes. Here, drink this. Oh, thank you very much. Lovely. Very refreshing. Slightly mushroomy. Oh my God, you're right. Jesus ascending to heaven. I can see the choirs of angels. I can see you, Lord. That's amazing. Whoa, look, over there, look, there's purple elephants playing leapfrog. Oh my God, what's happened to my legs? If lots of people in a small geographical area start seeing crazy things, the human reaction seems to be to look up to the heavens and to look for gods, whereas I think we should be looking down because there's probably something in the water. For my other theory, I'll use Abraham as an example. Abraham was a man who heard a voice in his head which he decided was God. The voice in Abraham's head told him to take his son to the top of a mountain and sacrifice him, and then at the last moment told him to stop. Now, that must have been a very tense walk back down the mountain. What the bloody hell was that all about, Dad? That was God's will. Have you been listening to the voices in your head again? In biblical times, hearing voices in your head made you a prophet. These days it makes you mentally ill. And it's interesting to note that in the Bible, prophecy runs in families. So, Could all religious myths be down to hallucination or undiagnosed mental illness? Well, it would account for all the insanity and the contradictions and the inconsistency and the evil that you find in most religious books. This book is full of madness. It was written by hallucinating mad people. Oh, that makes much more sense. Oh, I won't bother with that anymore. My upbringing made me an atheist who knows all the parts of the Bible that Christians wish other people didn't know. Like the fact that St. Paul was a big fan of slavery. In 1 Timothy, he even tells slaves that if their master is a Christian, they should work especially hard for them because their master is beloved of God. Christians really don't like it if you point that out to them. Oh, God, an informed atheist. We're the only ones who are supposed to know this stuff. And quite apart from all the deeply immoral practices in the Bible, there are also some very rude parts. In the story of Aholibah, we get the verse, "There she lusted after her lovers, whose genitals were like those of donkeys, and whose emissions were like those of horses." That's Ezekiel chapter 23, verse 20. And I'm pretty certain they've not used that as a reading on Songs of Praise. Now, there's also quite a lot of stuff in the Bible that's just plain weird. Deuteronomy tells us that men with crushed testicles, or whose privy member has been cut off, will never enter the congregation of the Lord. So just remember, if you ever kick a man in the nuts, you're not just assaulting him, you could be stopping him from getting into heaven. My parents didn't just teach me about religion, they're also very decent people who talked a lot about morality. They gave me a moral education, and then they made me read the Bible. Bad move, Mum and Dad. Violence, intolerance, sexism, hatred, homophobia, slavery. Oh look, a verse about peace. Misogyny, violence, racism, hatred, homophobia. Oh look, there's a verse about helping the poor. Oh, it's crying because it's all scared and alone and surrounded by hate. I'm sorry, Mum and Dad, but I refuse to believe in a God that I feel morally superior to. But then, most people can feel morally superior to the God of the Old Testament. In 2 Kings chapter 2, he sends bears to kill 42 children, all because those kids called his prophet Elijah Baldy. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's rather harsh. And then, of course, you've also got the story of Noah, where God, after being displeased with a few human beings, kills every living thing on this planet, except for one family and a few animals. Now, I think that's showing definite signs of anger management issues. And then, on top of that, you've also got the mass murder of firstborn sons in Egypt. You know, God's really racking up the offences. In fact, the God of the Old Testament is one of the most unpleasant characters in all of literary fiction. And it's not just the Old Testament. I also have a problem with the main gospel message of the New Testament, where you have to accept Jesus as your personal saviour or suffer the eternal fires of hell. But it's God that judges you. So what Jesus is actually saying to us is, let me into your life so I can save you. What are you going to save us from, Jesus? I'm saving you from what I'll do to you if you don't let me into your life so I can save you. It's like a giant celestial protection racket. Very flammable looking, that soul, sir. Just a slight slip and warmth, eternal hellfire. What you need's a personal saviour, if you know what's good for you. And I'd also like to make the point that if you ever end up in a court of law giving evidence, you will swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on the Bible. So what you'll be swearing on is violence, misogyny, slavery, thousands of dead children, and massive, wobbly, donkey-sized penises. And now I've compared the God believed in by millions of people to a gangster and undermined the British legal system. I think I should bring this to a close, or if there are any Christians in tonight, I should probably run like fuck. So enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.